Hi, y'all. Lisa Michelle with Fit by Design, and I am here with Lori Young Hayes, who is a speaker, writer, podcaster, and life coach. And her favorite topic is authenticity over approval. And I'm so excited because actually she's also my friend. And I'm so excited to have her here with me talking about this topic today. Hey, Lori.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that we get to, have the fun that we have off the camera now on the camera and share it with the world. So that's a really exciting thing. So before we got on here, Lori and I were talking about just her passion for this overall message that she's been entrusted with about authenticity over approval. And you said a word that really stuck out to me, Lori, and that was how we can use this idea of authenticity over approval to rewire our mindset. And I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so I think in terms of mindset, we could think of having an approval mindset and then having an authenticity mindset. And it's almost as clear as those two distinctions. And I think our brains go to what's familiar, of course. But if we grew up needing to seek approval from our parents, our teachers, then that is how our brain starts to get wired. That's the mindset we get into. Please don't go into your psychologist saying, "Hey, I want to know about the approval mindset," because I don't know if that's a thing. I'm making it up, but it helps me to think of some relationships that I have that I get like really stuck and hardwired in an approval mindset. Like I am not really who I want to be in this relationship because I am trying so hard to get their approval. I don't think they'll approve of me the way that I authentically am. But to to move our mindset or to shift the way that we think into an authenticity mindset, there's like if we look at it like a bridge, right? On one side of the bridge is the approval mindset, and on the other side of the bridge is an authenticity mindset. The bridge are the three principles that get us over to authenticity. And those three principles are truth, trust, and territory. And Lisa, I know you and I are going to unpack those a little bit today.
Oh, yes. I love that. And I love that analogy about the crossing of the bridge. That's such a powerful analogy. So we want to make this journey across the bridge for sure, because oh, how I relate to what you were saying about, trying to just earn that approval and not so sure about, my authentic self and if it'll be accepted. I, for one, and that would take an entire other podcast and probably some therapy sessions to unpack, but I, for one, have tried on so many different identities, throughout my life for that reason. One thing that stood out to me that you said that I wanted to comment on was the comment that you made about familiar. And so I think, no pun intended, but I think you are familiar with Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit. And okay, I awesome book, y'all, awesome book. But I have to tell you, I'm such a nerd, and I totally geeked out over that book. It's probably one of my favorite books ever. But he talks about this concept of familiar, and he gives, I don't know if you remember, he gives this example of songs on the radio and how, like, we will turn the dial until, okay, maybe that's old school. Now we can just pick any song we want, right? So people are like, "What do you mean?" Okay, well, I drive an old vehicle, so I can still I can still actually flip through the channels. But anyway, he talks about this concept of we always want to stay on a familiar song, even if we don't like that song. Isn't that crazy? And so I'm thinking it's the same thing with our thoughts. Like, even if we don't like that song that's playing up here, song, um, it's familiar and we're still going to go to that. And so that's how powerful it is. And it's been backed by all this scientific research. So I love that you said that.
Yeah, and I think it's especially true in relationships when we wonder why we're drawn towards certain personalities or certain
Mhm.
people. I have relationships in my life where I'm on the authentic side of the bridge, firm and fast. You are one of my friends that
Mhm.
I can do anything, I can say anything, I can be who I am, and I am not worried about what you think. But there are certain relationships that I am consistently seeking approval. I can feel it in my body, in my heart. Everything in me goes to this like super fake, um, who I think this person wants me to be, how I think this person wants me to behave. And there are some relationships I can't make rhyme or reason out of why I continue to be drawn towards their approval. Um, and as hard as I try, I just can't seem to get over the bridge into authenticity with with some of those people.
Mm,
So,
I
and
relate.
I think it's because it's a familiarity thing. You know,
Mm.
there's something about them that reminds me of somebody else I needed approval from a long time ago or something.
Oh,
That's a
yes.
very
Yeah.
deep psychological thing, so we don't have time to do that
Yeah.
today,
Right. That's true. That's true. We're just describing that.
but the awareness of what that feeling feels like, that's what's really important. That is important to our discussion today,
Oh, I
because
really
that's
like
the
that.
mindset, that's the groove that we're in our brains that we're talking about.
Yeah, so I think that that's really important awareness. And so can you unpack that just a little bit, the awareness aspect?
Yeah, so I can and I think people probably experience it differently. Um I feel it I feel like a constriction in my heart when I'm around people that I am looking for their approval. I
Mm,
think a little bit differently, so the words that I say come out differently. My body feels a little more tense and not as relaxed. I am measuring every word
mm,
when I'm seeking approval. I'm not inclined to tell the truth. So if they ask me a question and I think they won't like the answer, I'll give them the answer I think they'll want.
mm.
I tend to not trust them very much. I can feel like a disconnect or a distrust. And I also fall into this perception that I can control how they feel about me, that I can make them happy or I can keep them from being upset or angry. And usually, this is the kind of relationship that there is a trade off for me receiving their approval. Like, I need something from them, I need their attention, I need a promotion, I need something in return, right? It's a relationship of exchange. With you, I get to just be your friend, you know? I don't I don't need your approval. I don't need anything outside of that either.
Right, big difference. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I really relate to that a lot. And I think it's true of, of so many people. And it made me think of um something I wrote down about minding our I am statements, because our actions are going to follow those. And we all have these I am statements, whether they're internal or they're external. I mean, they're all going to be internal to some degree, but we may not actually verbalize all of them. Many of them, usually the negative ones, are going to be more internal. So, and we all struggle with this to some degree. But just a simple kind of basic example of one is I am a runner. And so because I identify with that, I am a runner. Well, I run every week. And so of course I'm going to run. My actions are going to follow that because in my mind I believe I am a runner. And so you can fill in the blank with your occupation or, the fact that you're a parent, you're a wife, you're a husband, all of these things. And so your actions follow suit, right? But then, of course, there's the emotional I am statements, that aren't good. And I think that that kind of ties into would it be your truth principle in your 3 bullet points? Yeah. So what would you speak to that, Lori?
So this is reminding me of when I was divorced and I was dating someone that I really liked. And he was a trail runner. And so I was like, I'm a trail runner.
I love it.
I've never been a trail runner in my life. I did end up becoming a runner. He was also a triathlete. I did end up becoming a triathlete. But I bought trail running shoes. I bought all the equipment I thought I would need to be a trail runner.
So you must have
Um,
been one. if we buy all the gear.
If I have the shoes, I must be a trail runner. So what I what I've learned from that experience, this was such a big lesson for me in my single years, that I am statement is really powerful.
Mhm.
And if I'm trying to get somebody's approval, I have no idea who I actually am. And
Mm,
so
so
the
good.
crossover into authenticity is to really take some time and honestly examine in your own space, in your own time, you and God, who am I? What is important to me? I call this knowing your truth. Um, you you have to spend some time. I had to spend some time asking myself some really hard questions.
Mhm.
Who am I? What do I value? What's important to me? Am I like willing to create a deal breaker around this? Am I really a trail runner? You know, one of the downsides of this relationship was that he was not a person of faith. And
Mhm.
so I had to ask myself, am I really a person of faith, and how important is this to me? And
Wow.
am I willing to um, compromise my values to
Yeah,
continue to be in a relationship when 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 that is not the truth of who I am? So I think doing some self-discovery, doing some self-examination, doing that self-mastery work, that is vital to us recognizing that authenticity um, is well worth the trade-off of trying to live for people's approval, because it is a trade-off and it's not an easy decision to make every
absolutely.
day.
Yeah. Oh, so good. And I actually, as I was building out some of the content for this mindset challenge I'm doing, I was just, you know, writing something about self-reflection and journaling being a huge success principle in when we're talking about the principle of mindset overall. And I recently read, and I won't be able to quote it because I don't remember, but some astounding research on journaling and just how impactful it is. And I couldn't even believe the research behind it. And I've heard for years, and I have been a journaler off and on, just maybe not as consistent as I wanted to be. And when I read this, I thought I have to journal every day. Like it was that powerful. So I have to find that and put it, somewhere so that y'all can read it. But it was very impactful to me. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
I would
good stuff.
say that is so true, and it is such a key tool in this idea of knowing the truth of who you are,
Mhm.
and then speaking your truth. Because it's one thing for me to know I'm not a trail runner, but then to like honestly go to him and say, you know, I'm actually not a trail runner. Can we still be friends?
Huge deal. And I'm sure taking the hard way out, right?
It
So,
is.
for sure. So one of my favorite quotes, and let's see if I can get it right. I haven't actually quoted this in a long time, but I used to quote it so much that my little one, he was like 3 or 4, and he used to tell me whenever I'd get upset over something, or I'd be struggling with pushing through on something, he would quote this back to me. It was absolutely adorable and helped me to persevere sometimes. But anyway, it says, if you take if you take the easy way out, your life will get harder. But if you take the hard way out, your life will get easier. And that that has really brought me through many things, just saying it, in my mind, because most of the time, the right way, or the thing that's going to bring us the most success down the road, for our future self or the longevity, is going to be the harder road. So
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Crossing over to authenticity is not the easier way.
right
But
now.
it will right now, but it will be easier in the long run. It will.
Yeah.
And mostly because you're gonna um really discover the people that you can trust, which is
Mhm.
our second foundational principle.
Yes, what a great segue, Lori, because I was just I was just thinking in my head, trust. So we were like on the same exact path. So yeah, so talk to us about this second principle of trust.
So trust is it's thick, right? Because you and I were just saying
Mm,
before we hopped on, trust is a choice.
yes.
But trust is also there's three different aspects to it, right? So if you're a person of faith, trust is trusting God, trusting God that what he says about you is true. And also, I think trusting God that he doesn't, he's not out handing out approval. We don't need God's approval.
That's good.
We have his grace. It's done. We have received grace. You might hear like pastors say, all you need is God's approval, not people's approval. But I disagree. I think I'm choosing to trust that I have God's grace,
100%.
and that's sufficient, right? Trust is also about trusting yourself, knowing that you have authority through the Holy Spirit. And also, trust is about choosing to trust other people. And when you don't know, like if you're lacking information, do they really like me? Do they really, will they really, if they really knew me, what would they really think of me? It's filling in the blank with a choice to trust them. I think when we're in an approval mindset, we kind of start to distrust people. We kind of assume that they won't like us. We make a lot of assumptions based on our past experience, or like we talked about, they remind us of someone else. And so we stop trusting people. When we're being authentic, we're choosing to trust other people, and we're choosing to trust ourselves.
For sure. And I feel like we're so in sync because you said so many of the things that I was thinking about, where I was going, what I had written down. So I love it. And we didn't even talk about all of those things at all. But you said so many key things in there. And I just, it makes me want to really highlight some of these in bullet point notes too, that people can, get like double the benefit out of them. But you said, some things about a trust. So I like the order of trust, right? So I have been talking about trust a lot, writing about trust a lot, and I have come up with this order of trust that is important also. So trusting God first and foremost, then trusting his ourselves, but not just ourselves in any aspect of the way that you would want to put that, but trusting in the way that he has designed us. So our design and what you're saying, it's really the foundation of everything that we're talking about. Who am I in Christ? Who does he say that I am? And making that very important. And again, we're going across the bridge, we're going across the bridge and we're aligning ourselves with his word and what he says that we are. And then third, the trusting others. So that has been my little stacked order of trust. And so I was like, oh yeah, yeah. I'm like cheering whenever you're saying that, because we're totally on the same wavelength. And then the other one was that you just brought up, choosing. Were you gonna say something? I'll come back to the choosing.
I was going to say that the trust yourself thing gets so
Mm-hmm.
twisted, right? And when I say you can trust yourself, I really mean you have received God's grace. You can trust yourself because God trusts you, right? God has given
That's
you
good.
authority. And if we mess up, we have God's grace. We don't want to. That's not what we want for each other. That's not what we want for ourselves. But I believe we're all doing our best. And I believe that because I've been given the Holy Spirit, I have been given authority, I can trust myself to make decisions, to be authentic, to say the true thing. I really want people to know, like, you can trust yourself. You're a child of God.
Yes, yes, that's so good. And I mean, there's so much depth to what we're talking about. But I mean, just to name a few, like if you go and look and read in God's word for yourself, but you'll find out that the depth of your identity in him and these I am statements go so deep, and that you are heir, like, you have an inheritance at your disposal. And yes, you can trust yourself in the way that you've been designed. And I love that. And then that really ties into this idea of trust over control, because I know if you've been around here for 2 minutes, you probably have heard me say that I have control issues. And so, and as humans that live in a fallen world and we're imperfect, we just crave that control. We want to be in control. But the opposite of that is trust. And so learning this, this tight walk act or walk balance act of actually walking out this trust is the total opposite of control. So I promise we're coming back to choose at some point, but do you want to say anything in that regard? The trust over control.
Well, so the it's funny that, trust is the opposite of control, because that's our third foundational principle, is
Oh, nice.
territory.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll explain it really quick, but I know you had another question about choosing. So territory is knowing where you end and other people begin. It's
Okay.
knowing what's mine to own, what I need to take responsibility for, my thoughts, feelings, and behavior. It's knowing what other people need to take responsibility for, their thoughts, feelings, and behavior. And when we have an approval mindset, we kind of believe, we don't kind of believe, the mindset is I can make them happy, or I can
Wow.
keep from making them mad or sad. That's that's a lie. That's not true. That's their territory, right? So
And
we
that is
don't have,
control.
yeah, we don't have control over other people's
Mhm.
territory. And so the other piece to that, of course, is setting boundaries,
Yeah.
and also like learning how to maintain and set our boundaries in an authentic way.
That's huge. That's huge. I was thinking the whole time you were talking about territory, I was like, this is boundaries. And yeah, such a healthy principle to talk about again. And y'all really we are just scratching the surface because again, boundaries has so much depth too. But this is so good. This just means, Lori, that we're gonna have to come back on and have, another talk. So yes, yay for us because then we get to spend time together and everyone else gets to benefit from it too. So I love this energy that we get to have and pass on to others. So yeah, so let's go back for a moment to that choosing. So what I wrote here, and really it just goes perfectly with what you were saying. So I wrote, when we're talking about a growth, we didn't necessarily talk about this, but there's so much information out there about a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And I'm going to be posting a lot about that during this challenge too, because it's really the stark difference, right? The two ends of the spectrum. So when we're talking about growth versus this fixed mindset, we have to remember that some people actually believe, well, that's just the way that I am. How many times do you hear people say that? Well, I was thinking about that in relation to this talk, and I thought, well, they may actually want to argue that that's authentic because that's just the way I am. Well, that's authentic. That's the way I am. And although a mindset is firmly planted by definition, it says it's an established, which I looked up established. Yes, I'm a word nerd. And established means firm and concrete, but that doesn't mean it's unchangeable. It doesn't. So, mindset, by definition, is an established set of habitual attitudes that someone holds. And, but that does not mean we can't change it. It just means it takes intentional actions to change it. And it takes the choice. So I would love for you to talk to this, speak to this idea of choosing because we have to make the choice. And is it one and done? Go for it.
Oh my gosh, no. Oh, what I mean, my mind is blown right now. I I really, the more I've studied, the more I have studied authenticity, the more it has become apparent to me that it is not a stagnant thing. And to
Mm,
truly embrace authenticity is to keep growing and keep discovering and rediscovering and doing self mastery work and more self mastery work. It is um, exploring what some people call the shadow side, and really understanding like, oh, this is a place where I am stuck in a fixed mindset, right? Like I am pretty stubborn in this area of my growth,
wow.
and really like discovering why. Um, it is absolutely an active decision. Authenticity is an active choice every day. almost every hour, and sometimes for me, depending on the people that I'm around, every single moment that
Wow.
I'm around
Yeah,
them. Like, okay,
I
what
get
is
that.
true for me? Where am I not trusting? Where is an area that I'm trying to control that I can't control? Um, I have to there are some relationships I have to do that on a really regular
Yeah.
basis, but the I am who I am, you nailed it. That is such a fixed mindset. Um, you could relate that to, like, I think an approval mindset is a fixed mindset.
Mm,
Um, and without the practice of learning about who you are, you really can't get to a truly authentic place. You have to ask the hard
that's
questions of
good.
yourself and get really curious. What's going on inside, you know?
That's so good. And I love the how perfect this matches up to everywhere, everything that I'm going towards with my message right now, and just identity. I'm talking a lot about identity, and so this excites me so much. And you said this concept that I've never heard before about this shadow side, and so I'm like, I wish that we had more time to unpack that right now because I have to know. And so that just means we're gonna do a little cliffhanger here. So, Lori, one concept that I picked up on that you said was, well, the word you said was stagnant. And I thought that was so important because years ago I heard this concept in leadership and business and things that I was studying about nothing is truly ever stagnant, really. As far as our growth and you can look in nature, it's amazing how many times you can see this concept in so many different ways, but that if we're not going forward, unfortunately, we're going backward. That, we're not ever truly stagnant. Well, that really is impactful if you think about it. It's like kind of like, oh, well, we think this is the joke we used to say. So, you hear people say all the time, oh, I have 30 years of experience in the field. And this leader that I used to listen to all the time, he would say, no, actually, you have 1 year of experience 30 times. Ouch. That's because they don't have a growth mindset. That's because, they're trying to be stagnant, but what that really means is they're going backward. And so, any comment on that?
Yes, authenticity is so much about moving forward, um, keeping momentum, and approval is so much about staying stuck and staying fixed um, and not doing any of the hard work that it takes to cross over the bridge and be authentic.
Yes, I love that. Well, I think that's a perfect way to end it. And here's the analogy that just popped in my head. Okay, so yes, it's hard work, and sometimes that scares us. But you know what? It only takes a journey of 1,000 miles takes the first step, and it takes one step at a time. And the analogy that just popped in my head that I'm smiling about is one of my favorite movies with Bill Murray. What about Bob? If you've ever seen it. It'll bring a smile to your face. And he's like, baby steps to the office, baby steps. Okay, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you have to go watch this movie. But friend, all you have to do is take baby steps. And that's really all it takes. So don't be scared about the hard work concept. You can do this, you can change your mindset. You can choose authenticity over approval. Lori, this message has been so amazing. Like we have to have you back. We've already got a cliffhanger set up, so that means it is official. So will you come back with us?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm here for it.
I'm so excited. Well, thank you so much for being here today. It was an awesome talk, and we will see you again soon.
All right. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.